Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Crew First Culture podcast. My name is Jeremy. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today. Got another great guest on today and been really looking forward to it because it feels like it's been a while since I've sat down with somebody and had some good conversation. So today I've got Josh Chase. How you doing, Josh?
I'm pretty good. I just honestly, like I said, I appreciate you having me on and everything you're doing for the fire service, to be completely honest.
Well, I appreciate that, but when you say it, I don't really know what I'm doing for the farm. I'm just lucky enough to sit here with some great people and have some good
Yeah,
conversations. That's that's all I do. But
right.
anyway, so a couple weeks ago, I got a text from Jared Sergi. I always mess that up. Saying, "Hey, got a buddy here that's put out a book. He's speaking your language. He really lines up with the way you think. And so when you get a text from Sergi, why do I always mess that up? Jared Sergi is saying that this guy is somebody you need to talk to. Well, I take that to heart, and I
Right.
definitely want to talk to you. So I got your book, and the book is Jump Seat Leadership, and we will
Right.
get into all that here pretty quickly. But I just kind of wanted to give a little background on how we hooked up together and really enjoyed the book. Like I said, we'll get into that. But if I don't stop myself here at the start, I always jump past the bio and kind of cut my guest off. But
Right.
so before we get into that, Josh, just go ahead and like we talked about before I push record, as much or as little bio as you want to. Kind of tell us who you are, where you came from, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate it. Like Jeremy said, my name is Josh Chase. Been with Norfolk Fire and Rescue since 2005, so I'm going on 16 years now. I'm a lieutenant on ladder 8. Just got promoted actually last year. So it's been a pretty good career so far. I kind of grew up in the fire service, learned a lot, done a lot. Matured a little. I still got, a ways to go as far as maturity, I would say. But right now, where I'm at in life, I guess it's more about faith, family, fire service. That's probably what describes me the most. Got a military background. I did 6 years in the Army, did a deployment to Operation Iraqi Freedom back in 2005, like right in the middle of my first academy. So it was like perfect timing. And yeah, so I got to do that as a Black Hawk crew chief, got to do some cool stuff. Left the Army as a sergeant. And, I took a lot of the leadership stuff from the Army and dragged it right into the fire service with me. So didn't have a lot of experience when it came to fire service, except for like, basic first aid that I learned in the Army. But I had some leadership background and I knew I wanted to apply it somewhere. Informal leadership was huge in the military. It wasn't, oh, everybody's a leader. It was, you have to be a leader for survival almost. And so I didn't have the skills for the fire service, but I believed I had some of the leadership ability, and I knew I could put this together. And it's taken me quite a bit of time to do that. But no, I enjoy what I do. I really do. I love the fire service. I got guys around me that keep me motivated. I think if you've been doing this job for any amount of time, you can get a lull, in your career where you look around and you're like, okay, still love the job, but what's going on? And I think it's important to have those guys around you. And you mentioned Jared Sergi, and he's one of those guys that I've had around me my entire career. We came up together. We worked on Engine 2 together. Anytime we mentioned we were on Engine 2 together and we're around people, you'll get an eye roll locally because they're like, oh, these guys from Engine 2. And they're still the guys from Engine 2, and they're not wrong. We still are the guys from Engine 2. But I'd like to say we've grown up a little, learned a little, and life will change you whether you like it or not. So that's me in a nutshell. And honestly, man, I'm excited to just have a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Josh goes into pretty good story about his joining the fire service, starting rookie school, having to stop rookie school, like you said, to go on deployment, come back, and so definitely. First of all, I want to steer everybody to this book. It's a small book, an easy read, which I love because I'm a slow reader. I I love the thought of reading, and I definitely love learning, but it's
Right.
hard for me to get engaged
Right.
in really big books. And so these are my wheelhouse books right here. But anyway, it goes into that pretty well. So look at that and get into that. But kind of tell us a little bit about kind of your thought process during that time. You know, you're just now starting in a academy. You're having to get
Right.
pulled out of that, get your mind in a
Sure.
completely different space. You know, tell us a little bit about that time.
Yeah, sure. So like I said, man, I wanted to help people since I was a kid. I'm not one of those guys that can say I wanted to be a fireman.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to help people. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know how I wanted to do it. It ended up to where I joined the Army National Guard first. When I joined, they said, "Hey, we're leaving. You know, you're choosing to be a Black Hawk crew chief. Just so you know, this unit's leaving in 2 years." I kind of chuckled, said, "Yeah, okay, we'll see." Well, this was 2003 when shit was hot and heavy,
Yeah.
and so we were leaving, and they weren't lying. I got in a fire academy in 2005, and really quick, I got a warning order that said you're leaving in October. So July 2005, I got married, went on a honeymoon, and I was in the academy the day following my honeymoon. Got deployed in October, right out of the fire academy. And I thought I was going to have to redo the whole thing when I got back, which I was kind of depressed. I was like, God, I just went through, 4 months of fire training. I just want to do the EMS when I get back. I didn't really put it on hold. I brought books with me, believe it or not, but I worked for a pretty busy aviation battalion in the Army. We were attached to First Force Recon in the Marine Corps, and we did a lot of cool shit, man. We raid missions, stuff you can talk about, stuff you can't talk about. But I knew I had something cool to go back to, and yeah, I'll get into this at some point. But the fire service almost kind of like saved me as far as camaraderie and the brotherhood that you leave war and they send you back and you're into the civilian life again, and
Yeah.
you're looking for something very similar, and
Yeah.
the corporate world doesn't cut it. Chick-fil-A is not going to cut it. Being a mechanic, just it didn't cut it. So I was
Yeah.
lucky to have the fire service waiting for me.
Yeah.
um I chose the transition to do it quietly. Like, I knew I'd just come back from war, but I didn't know anything as far as the fire service. So I don't want to be that guy that came in and was like, "Hey, I was at war 3 months ago, flying around helicopters behind a gun. Treat me with some respect."
Mm.
I didn't do that because I
Yeah.
was like, I don't know anything about this job. I think I'll
Yeah.
do okay. There's some similarities. So I would like to say I had a adoptive mentality when it came to learning. I had a really motivated captain. Like I said before we hit record, this guy was been around the fire service forever. Been around the truck since he was 14, 15 years old, and he truly cared about making sure his men and women went home. And so I started to see. I mean, I was in the military up until this point, and I can honestly say between military and fire service, this guy is probably one of the best leaders I've ever worked for.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, man, he took us under his wing and treated us like we knew nothing, because we didn't. He didn't make us feel small about it. He had standards, and we were to meet them, and we were to meet them because it was profession. It's a profession, right? It
Yeah.
wasn't personal. It was professional. And like Jared was right there with me. He was one of the young guys with me that was growing up, I guess, under this captain. And man, we trained. I was just writing about this last night. We trained and we trained and we trained. And then, after about 2 or 3 years of being on engine 2, medic 2, being busy, I remember getting frustrated with him one day, and I was like, yeah, so when are we going to do some different stuff? And he was like, I'm not following. I was like, yeah, well, we do man under search. We're doing blindfold SCBA drills. We're tossing the bunk room, doing search and rescue. We're doing Mayday. We're pulling hose lines. We're throwing ladders. I mean, if it was training, we did it,
Yeah.
and I was like, I just want to do some advanced firefighting. And he kind of looked at me, weird, because I guess I thought there was advanced firefighting,
Uh-huh.
so he looked at me weird, and he kind of turned to me, looked in his chair, and he was like, you just need to get really good at the basics and get proficient at your job and the craft, and then you'll look like an advanced firefighter.
Yep.
And then he kind of sent me out of the room, and I was like, oh, okay. I didn't really realize how his leadership would affect me long term.
Yep.
And that wherever I went after that, I mean, I joke when I left his command and went to my next station, you talk about being sheltered. I thought, and this is not speaking anything ill of the firehouse that I went to, but when I say we were in it, I mean me and Sergi and these guys were in it. We
Yeah.
breathed, we ate it, we lived it, we breathed it. And I thought, honestly, I really thought the entire fire service thought this way about the best
Yeah.
job in the world. I did.
Yeah.
So I go to the next station and I'm like, good guys, man, really good guys. They've been around the job a little bit longer, so maybe not as motivated. And I felt like I'd been homeschooled for like 6 years. And then I got kicked into public school and I was like, wait, what's going on here? So I kind of had to learn, Engine Two's
Yeah.
way was not the only way.
Yeah.
And deep down, I'll still tell people Engine Two's way was the only way. But but no, it was man, I really had to come into this job with a I don't know anything mentality.
Yeah.
I really have to learn. And I was forced to learn pretty quick. We were busy. We weren't fighting fire. I'd love to say we were fighting fire today, but for the first probably 2-3 years I was there, we were pretty steady. Medical calls, fires. My third day on the job, I write about this in the book. I had a fire 2 blocks over from the station in the middle of a VES drill. We get toned out. I'm lost, man. I'm 3 days on the job. I'm at the top of a ladder ready to jump in a building. I'm yelling out the window. I'm sounding the floor. The fire tones hit. Everybody's gone. I'm like, well, where did everybody go? So we end up at a candy factory that's lit off. My third day on the job. I spray the captain in the face with the hose on accident. I go in, I'm sucking down air in like 2 minutes. I come off the hose line. I'm lost. My captain grabs me, so I'm not really lost. And then, next thing I know, we're outside and I'm like, shit, we got to go back in. I knew nothing about the job.
Yeah.
And it was freaking chaos back then, man. I can honestly say now, I feel like when I walk into fires, I'm pretty calm. And I don't yell, I don't scream. And
Yeah.
if I had a soundtrack playing, it'd probably be Frank Sinatra or some classical music. But
Yeah.
no, it's great stuff the first couple of years. But my mindset was really, I know I'm a leader at heart.
Yeah.
And I know what I want to do in the fire service. And I think our captain saw that. I think he saw it in Jared. I think he saw it in me, and I think he saw it in the guys that he worked for. And not everybody there was a leader. And I'll say that. And
Yeah.
but I think he poured into me, and he poured into Jared, and he poured into anybody that wanted to listen. But when we were
Yeah.
acting officers, we'd get mad because other guys were getting cut loose to be acting officers, and we weren't getting cut loose. We were like, look, our book's done. And he would just flat out tell us, if you cannot do everything I can do while I'm not here, that's not acting. It wasn't about getting a book checked off. It was about being able to perform to the standard and developing the mentality of caring about your guys enough to make the decisions so they can go home in the morning.
Yeah.
And man, you talk about crucial to my career. I've probably thanked this guy 100 times, and he's freaking humble. And he probably, and I've talked about him multiple times, and he's like, just stop. But it is what it is, man. He was a good guy, and he's a leader, and he cared, and he it made a difference years later. But.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and I wish I could just take notes. That's the bad part of being a host to these shows. Like I talked about earlier, I'm so blessed to sit here and have these conversations.
Right.
But I look back on them and like, man, I wish I would have taken some notes, but I can't. I don't have the mental capacity to take notes.
Right. Oh, I hear you.
But two things definitely that I definitely want to really kind of talk about more. The first one is your mentality coming in. You talk about, you said basically, I just came from war. I was, whatever you were doing, I was in charge of blah, blah, blah. During war, I come here and you're going to treat me like a new guy. That probably takes a lot. I can't personally say that takes a lot because when I came in, I was a 24-year-old kid like you, had no idea anything about fire service, but I also didn't have that military background. So I was just a dumb kid, period. but to really be able to go through what you went through, be in charge of, the people you were in charge of, the situations that you were in charge of and dealt with, and then have to come back to the real world and kind of submit all of that. I'm sure that took a little bit of, man, hey, little respect to be nice, but at the same
Yeah.
time, the people like you that can do that, throw that all aside, quietly do their job and play the role of the new person and all that. All of the stuff that you're hiding and putting aside, it will come up. It,
Right.
it will be known, and people
Right.
will be able to see that and respect it even more.
Right.
So that's a big deal, and I'm sure it's not a hard, or I'm sure it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I can't say I did it all right. I
Oh
definitely
yeah,
had
oh
my
yeah,
Yeah, I definitely had
yeah.
my moments where I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah,
Like, I got to learn this. You're
yeah.
teaching me to talk on the radio. Like, I flew around in helicopters and
Yeah.
talked to pilots and reported gunfire. I
Uh-huh.
know how to talk on a radio.
Yeah.
I got a lot of help for saying Roger. On the radio. I don't say it anymore, but it was. And I'll say this, and this was what was great about, I think, my crew is, um as much as I was willing to come in here and, like I said, not do it all right, I had plenty of moments where I said dumb stuff to the captain and he kindly set me straight. But I think I had a good crew who realized this guy did get back from war. He's a rookie, he's a new guy. And I think me taking that mentality, I don't want to say they took it easy on me. I think I got a little bit of respect. And
Yeah.
I still got wet. We
Oh
played a
yeah.
little bit of water. They
Yeah.
but it was a different kind of rookie. They didn't treat me like a guy right out of high school that
Yeah.
had no idea what was going on. And but I think it also helped that I was willing to learn. I
Yeah.
was like so plenty of, my whole career, I think you could talk to anybody that I've worked with. I'm a pretty bold and brash guy. I don't hide a whole lot. If I got something to say, I'm probably going to say it to the
Yeah.
detriment of sitting in somebody's office. And
Yeah.
I don't mind because I'll justify it. And
Yeah.
I had to go back and apologize multiple times. But,
Oh yeah.
so that there was managing that. But the guys were great. My first house, the guys are really good at managing. Yeah, he's back from war. He's still a rookie, but he's willing to learn. And I
Yeah.
think and I've seen it go the other way
Oh
where
yeah.
guys come in and they're like, "Hey,
Oh yeah.
listen, you know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't know what I've done." And
And that doesn't go well.
no, man, because I look, I don't care, and I write
Yeah.
about that in my book,
Yeah.
and I just don't care. It's not personal. I'm like,
Yeah.
if you can't contribute and you can't
Yeah.
learn, and I can't count on you, and I can't trust you, and you can't trust me,
Yeah.
you're worthless to me. And
Yeah.
I'd mean it. It's
Yeah.
hard. Me and Jared have had these conversations, man. It's hard to go drink a beer with a guy when at work he doesn't have your back because he has
Yeah.
no idea what he's doing. And I'm like, look, it ain't personal, but sometimes it can get personal.
Yeah.
I'm like, I
Well,
can't hang
sometimes it
out with
needs
you.
to get personal.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, we just can't be friends. We
Yeah.
can work together. We can
Yeah.
work together. We can help each other. I can get along with you at work, but knowing that
Yeah.
you think, you don't have to prove yourself here, and I think I learned that in the Army though.
Yeah.
I joined a flight company in the Army, which I started as a mechanic, and then I wanted to fly around in the Black Hawks behind a gun and do cool stuff. So I had to prove myself when I got into the flight company. They weren't
Yeah.
like, okay, you're a mechanic, now you jump in here and you're worth something. I went the extra mile. I showed up early. I completed my training early. I made sure, and I write about this in another book, that I live this stuff. So they took me seriously. So when I got
Yeah.
to the fire department, I did the same thing. It was like, I cannot just come in here and, hey, look what I did. I adopted it, I learned it, and I wanted these guys to know that, like, I'm all in. And man, I was ate up. I mean, to the point where, my first wife was like, I honestly think you love me more than love the fire service more than you
Yeah.
love me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
honestly, that was probably an accurate statement. you know it was to a level where I was like,
Yeah.
and I think I was looking for something because of the military.
Yeah.
And but man, I am so thankful for those years because in the lull moments that I've had in the fire service, where things have maybe gotten slow, or like, hey, am I gonna do this forever, or
Yeah.
those moments, and that captain, and thinking like, no, I am passionate about this.
Yeah.
I am passionate about guys going home in the morning and being able to perform and do their job.
Yeah. That's kind of that, I said two things out of what you were saying was really struck out to me. And that leads into that second thing is, and it's something that I've really felt here over the past year and a half, 2 years. I've spoken on kind of what was a turnaround for me,
Right.
a air quotes rebirth almost of my passion and drive was getting a new person on my crew.
Right.
And the realization of the importance that I am going to play in his career. And
Right.
you just explained exactly the whole backstory of why I feel that's important. You know,
Right.
you literally put into words my feelings on that's my job. That it is my job to put these people in the best position to succeed, not only
Right.
today or next month, but 20 years down the road. I mean, how long do you have on now?
So it'll be 16 years this year.
16 years later, you're still pointing to this captain as one of
Right.
the main influences of your life. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And that, man, that's a big deal. And I speak to kind of the weight of leadership, and I feel
Right.
like that right there, that's what I'm talking about. It,
Yeah.
being a leader should be heavy. There is a responsibility to it. And so
Absolutely.
I appreciate that story just because it gives words to how I feel about it.
Right. Yeah. And like, even like you just said, I'm pointing back to him, and multiple times. And when I left his command, I wasn't an officer. I was me. I was Jake riding the back of the truck, and but I was like, I'm gonna emulate this guy.
Yeah.
Not want to be him, but I saw how he carried himself. I saw what he did. I saw
Yeah.
the principles. I saw the standards. I saw how he raised us up. He's handing us books like, you need to read Pride and Ownership. You need to watch these videos and do your own size ups. You need to learn the trucks for yourself. This isn't about me. This is about you.
Yeah.
And so when I left, I wanted to not be him, but I was like, he taught me principles and standards that I carried with me and adopted, and I made it part of my own culture. And so I wasn't a captain, when I left his command. I wasn't a lieutenant. I was something I wanted to do someday,
Yeah.
but I was like, I can definitely take his standards and principles and make them part of my life. Take the skills that he's taught me in the fire service, combine that with some military and leadership experience that I'd already had, and I think I can take a good shot at this informal leadership thing and see where it gets me in the fire service.
Yeah.
And so, and that's something I really do touch on in the book, is I didn't wait until, oh, I'm going to get promoted and then I'm going to
Yeah.
start developing myself and developing other people.
Yeah.
Um, didn't always do it right. I've apologized to one or two rookies that are now not rookies, for how I talked or how I treated them. The fire service has come a long way with,
Oh yeah.
things like that. But I really did start taking guys under my wing and running them through drills, when I left his command, because other stations weren't doing it and captains weren't doing it.
Yeah.
They were great managers. I've worked for some really good managers.
Yeah.
They could manage a crew, they could do a roster, they could do roll call. But when it came to leadership, um, either they'd never been trained, which is a problem in itself, or they just didn't want to do it. And I didn't wait until that person stepped up. I was like, look, I care and I have to work with you. So if you're not straight, it's going to directly affect me and the rest of this crew.
Yeah.
So I took everything he taught me and I ran with it, and it was infectious. I started, and I think people saw it, and it can be threatening to people who aren't leading. It can be
Oh yeah.
threatening to a guy who's got 20 years on the job but has never really taken that informal role of leadership. Now
Yeah.
you got a 5-year guy that walks in and not take over, but it's like, hey, why don't we do something today?
Hmm.
If you've ever
Yeah.
taken out a piece of rope in a firehouse, people start tying knots.
Yeah.
And I've done it a couple of times where I just take out my rope out of my locker and I'll toss it to somebody. Next thing I know, there's a gathering of people tying knots. That's training.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's man, I just didn't wait. And I think
Yeah.
as my career went on, Jared got promoted pretty early. I had a lot of personal stuff. You can't keep all your personal stuff outside the fire department. So I had,
Yeah.
every time there's a promotional exam, something personal came up.
Oh yeah.
For first promotional exam, like me and my wife were going through the ringer, and we're almost divorced. Then we get, by the next time the second promotional exam came around, we were just getting back together. Everything worked out. Now it's a priority, and our marriage is great. Fire service is all good. No time to study. Then the next time I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to take it. I'm just in a swing. The next time I go to take it randomly, this is like, I'll talk about this later, but she passed away at 32 years old unexpectedly. So I wasn't taking that exam either.
Yeah.
So it was like I couldn't take, my personal life outside the fire department.
Yeah.
Everybody around me was getting promoted. So it was like I continue to lead at the informal level regardless, or I just complain and whine until I make lieutenant someday.
Yeah.
Jared was a captain, and we came into the same time, and I'd be like, man, this guy's a freaking captain. I sat at the table with this guy.
Yeah.
We know the same stuff. And but it just wasn't my time.
Yeah.
But it really allowed me to develop myself and continue to suck it up and say, I have to lead where I'm at.
Yeah.
I didn't leave myself with a choice, really. And I didn't do it all perfect, and I talk about that
Oh
in the
yeah.
book too, man.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of senior guys pull me aside and be like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're a leader and you're hiding. And I was like, oh, whatever. I'll take the driver's test, see where that gets me. And then they're like, driver? Like, you're gonna be a lieutenant someday. Just continue doing what you're doing. And so it really was, for me, man, it was crucial to just keep doing what I was doing. And eventually, like I said, last year I got promoted. I got serious about the exam. I jumped through the hoops. I completely disagree with the hoops that we have in place to pick lieutenants. I'm not even going to say leaders these days, because I don't think we're
Yeah.
picking leaders.
Yeah.
So I jumped through them, and that's kind of where jump seat leadership came from. Was like, what would I tell guys that have been at 15 years on the job and just getting promoted? I did not want to write a book about being an officer. I've been an officer for 3 weeks. So I was like, well, what could I tell guys that are coming up in the ranks? Because I've been preparing myself for this position my whole career. This wasn't, oh, I'm going to take an exam, I'm going to get tossed a badge, now we'll see what happens. I think I understood the weight, and maybe it was from war. I think I understood the weight of taking an oath and somebody tossing me a badge and saying, this is now your truck, this is now your crew, and you are in charge of making sure they are developed to a level that they can take care of themselves. They should know your job. They should know the job of the man under them, so that you can go home in the morning.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say I felt the weight of my position when I took the oath, and I looked at my truck and I said, like, okay, ladder 8's that's my truck.
Yeah.
Like, they just promoted me and gave me a fire truck with people in it. And now we're supposed to perform and do our job. And I can tell you this, I don't know everything. It was still a little scary. I'm still learning. I'm still making progress. But I cannot imagine jumping in that position and having not at least given informal leadership a shot. I would have been completely unprepared. At least I felt confident I have a good base knowledge of leadership. I have a good base knowledge of what the job entails. And I have a foundation that I can continue to build on, so I can be a good officer. Because if you don't have that foundation and you decide when you get promoted to start building your foundation, I've seen people rise from the ashes, and it happens, and people succeed that way, but it's not a common way to build a house.
No.
And it's sad, man. And I don't want to get too much into promotional exams and the hoops, but I just wish we pick leaders. And I think what happens is we have exams and we have processes, and we pick people.
Good test
and
takers.
you get maybe two. I'm helping a guy prepare for a promotion right now, and the stuff I'm saying and helping him do, I'm helping him prepare for a test.
Yeah.
I don't say half the stuff I say. He's like, do I really have to say all this? And I'm like, yeah, if you want to get promoted. You know,
Yeah.
and it's sad, man. I think, out of 10 people, we may get 2 leaders, and then
Yeah.
you get another two guys that are like, okay, I should probably do a good job. And then you'll get 6 guys that are like, I made it. I'm like,
I
you
get
didn't
more
hang on
money
a
now.
second. Yeah, you didn't make it. Like this is the start of a new career.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you need to find a mentor, and you need to find
Yep.
some people to talk to. And man, that's why I've been so thankful for Jared. I said it wasn't my time to get promoted. It's perfect timing right now. Jared's been a lieutenant. Jared's been a captain. He's been an officer, I think, for the past 5 or 6 years. He could have tested for chief this time. He just chose not to. And
Yep.
this guy is a plethora of knowledge and motivation. And I have somebody that I can go to pretty much like a big brother. And I'm like, hey, listen, this is what I got. I mean, if you look
Yep.
at our text message strand, it's pretty much how can we fix the fire service? With a lot of frustration, salt and peppered in there,
Oh yeah.
because it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, the whole theme of the book is I don't understand why people are waiting to develop themselves, and
Yeah.
they think when they make officer, it's going to magically happen.
That's the day it starts. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, you guys, you have a freaking crew under you right now. And the day I made lieutenant, they moved me onto another shift. I knew some of the guys. They weren't calling me Josh. They were like, hey, Lou, so what do I do here? Hey, Lou, what do I do here?
Yeah.
Hey, Lieutenant, what about this? They were giving me the fireman salute, which I was doing 3 weeks ago. Like, I don't know. And you figure it out,
Yeah.
and like I said, it's mind-boggling to me the amount of people that are like, oh, you know what, when I get there, I'm like, you didn't pick up a book, you didn't do anything until the
Yeah.
promotional exam came up. And I'm glad you said that about the book earlier. The reason I wrote it the way I did is because people are like, well, I'm not a reader. And I'm like,
Yeah.
perfect. Because I literally wrote the book to where you can sit at the firehouse in the afternoon after lunch and read it in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And you could be the biggest non-reader out there. You can get through this book in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I wanted it, a quick jab in the face, like, hey, do something. And
Yeah.
I hope that's what it did, man. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, to speak on what you're speaking on, and to speak on, kind of what the book is about, I don't feel like you can truly, and it's probably echoing what you're saying too. I don't feel like you can truly be comfortable and definitely not excel as a formal leader if you did not exercise those informal leadership muscles, for
yep,
lack of better terms. Getting that work in as a 2-year firefighter, a 5-year firefighter, 10, whatever, just practicing those skills and using that, those abilities. Like you said, when you move into that spot, if you haven't done that, it's just like anything else. If you haven't practiced something and then all of a sudden you're put in a game day situation of using
right,
it, it's not going to be very good. And so
right,
this is no different at all. One thing I will say, because I'm a captain, I'm a station officer, I've been an officer for 10 years. So the informal role, I can't really say I've been a part of for a while now, but I have seen the importance so much of that informal role now.
right,
I feel like I tried to do a pretty good job back then when I was in that role, and practicing and doing what I could. But now to be a station officer in charge of crews, and seeing how important it is to have that person with you, or 2 or 3 people that are going to take care of business behind the scenes, push push training when maybe I don't feel like it as much
right.
as I should. All the, I mean, there's a million different things that informal leaders do
Oh
for
yeah,
us station officers. And if you don't have that, man, it is such a huge extra burden on
yeah,
those formal leaders. And so I love, I just hope there's just more and more of these things come out. You said
right,
that you kind of feel like everybody's saying the same thing, and it took you a little bit to actually put this out, but this is what we need. We
right,
need to build the fire service up from the ground up
right.
right here. And so Something that I've got highlighted in your book, and it's basically kind of talking about the viewpoint of the informal leader. Says this isn't you replacing your officer, it's you supporting your officer in administration in leading and developing the crews at your firehouse. Excuse me. And that's what I'm getting at. It's like
Right.
me as an officer, if I've got somebody that's kind of like what you've talked about, that's pushing to do something today, or pushing to, hey, what are we going to train on? What are we, do that? I'm like, bring it on. Let's go.
Do it.
That's
Yep.
that,
Yep.
that's what I want. I
It's an
want help.
asset.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't ever take that as somebody, oh gosh, he's sitting here trying to take my job.
Yep.
The fire service doesn't work like that.
And it
It's not
doesn't.
like it's not like this firefighter is going to literally take my job. It doesn't
Right.
work like that. So why would I take it personal?
Right.
They're trying to help me with my job.
Right.
Why would I not want that? And so, yeah, I just wanted to say that because, man, I have really seen the value of
Right.
informal leadership so
Yeah,
much.
man. And well, it's like you said. I mean, I think, we bring egos to work. We walk in there and, like, hey, I'm the captain, I'm the lieutenant. I would love to say I have no ego. I,
Oh
I
yeah.
would I would I would more accurately say I have an ego, but I've learned to keep it in check
Yeah.
and maybe not let it come out as often as I want. But like, man, informal leaders, they can run your station.
Yeah.
And it's not everybody. The one message I don't want to get across in my book is like, if you pick up this book, you can be a leader.
Yeah.
That's false. That's not true. And if that's the message you got from the book, you can message me and we can talk, because that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that if you believe you are this leader, if you're in a lull, this is a situation that you can step into. It's a role you can step into. Um, but my book is not going to make everybody a leader. But man, as a new officer that came from this informal leadership role, the first thing I did when I walked in that door, I was like, who's in charge? Now, I didn't ask.
Yeah.
Now I work for a captain. So the captain is ultimately in charge of me, and then I work for him, and then there's the guys. But the first thing I did was I sat back and I looked around, I listened, I built relationships, and I said, there's a guy in here amongst the crew, and he's in charge.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a good idea for me to find out who it is and build a relationship with this guy and work with him and let him know, and we had that conversation without having that conversation.
Yeah.
I never sat anybody down and said, are you the informal leader in this firehouse? We need to talk. It
Yeah.
came from me getting to know people, spending time with the guys, seeing who had influence, seeing who listened to who. And I very quickly started to see, okay, this guy's in charge. Aside from the captain, who I work for a 40-year captain, which is great. I mean, he's been an officer longer than I've even been in the fire department, so
Yeah.
he'll retire when he's 65 in a couple of years. I mean, this guy's like a living legend. But so as far as like supervision and leadership and management goes, he's got that whole side.
Yeah.
But as far as the crew, I was like, somebody's in charge of this crew at that level. When I was in the Army, we had squad leaders. They weren't in charge of the whole platoon, but they were in charge of, like, 3 to 10 guys, depending on the size of the squad. But once I found out who those guys were, I built relationships. We talked. I stopped calling them by their last name. I started calling by their first name. It got a little bit more personal. Gave them some responsibilities.
Yeah.
If they were good in an area. I mean, I had one guy at my station before I got there. He was a CrossFit trainer off duty. He had a CrossFit program going at 2 p.m. every day. And I was like, this guy's going to lead fitness for the entire time that I'm here. This is great.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, oh, listen. I'm the lieutenant, new program. And
Yeah.
I don't like CrossFit. I'm not a huge fan. I've become more of a fan, but I'm more of a fan because the camaraderie aspect, 2 p.m. every day, we're all out there doing it together.
Yeah.
But, so I wasn't threatened by it. And I just checked my ego. And now when I got there, I'll be honest, when I got there, there was a 40-year fireman there who was still a firefighter, riding the back of the engine, straight up engine guy, rode the tailboard at one point. I'm like, man, I'm a brand new freaking lieutenant. This guy's got 40 years on the job. This is going to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
And he completely embraced me, called me lieutenant from day one. But I'll tell you what, he knew a little bit about me. He knew that I could back up what I said, and he knew that I wasn't going to come in there and push people around.
Yeah.
And we ended up, me and that guy ended up sitting on the back of the tailboard of the engine and ladder most nights, drinking coffee, just telling stories,
Yeah.
and that could have went a completely different way. And then, he ended up retiring on me, which I was pretty upset about. I'm like, dude, he's like, well, I did 40 years. It's time to go, So, but yeah, man, I learned real quick. These are the leaders.
Yeah.
These are the guys I need. I handed them responsibilities, and I just kind of ran it like, listen, I work for you guys. They hired me to work for you. You don't work for me. I work for you.
Yeah.
You tell me what you need, I'll take care of it. But I also wanted to teach them, you guys need to take care of each other. So once you learn how to take care of each other, then we can talk, and if you can handle it at your level, handle it at your level. If you once you bring it to me, I got to handle it like a lieutenant.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I tell my kids, I'm like, hey, don't make me be a dad today.
Yeah.
So I'm like, don't, I'm a lieutenant. I'm wearing it. I get it. They toss me a bugle, but I'm like, please don't make me be a lieutenant today, because I do have a job. And if we run it like this, everybody be good to go.
Yeah.
But man, I've had officers, man, it's a freaking threat. They're like, who's this guy think he is? And I write about that a little bit. I backed off, or man, there are officers I challenged. Man, I've picked some battles that I probably shouldn't have picked. I've said stuff in meetings. I've said stuff as I'm walking away. I've said stuff face to face, and I've told officers, go ahead and transfer me. I'm going to say what I got to say. And if this ends up in a transfer, then I'm cool with it, because I'll love the job wherever you stick me. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I haven't done it all right, but I'd say pick your battles. But if you're an officer and you're listening to this, just to emulate what you just said, like, if you got guys in your house that are willing to lead, and then they are leaders, man, work with them. Let them do it. Let them. To think that we get promoted and then we can do everything is asinine. Yeah. So to have a team of guys around me with the same goals, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Yeah. And I don't think I can recreate maybe what I had at Engine 2 with, Captain Dommel and Jared and all of these guys. It may not be the same, but I can still use the same standards, principles, and create the culture. And if you're talking about culture, I'm talking about 10 to 15 years, of changing the fire service. It's not going to change tomorrow. No. And if I don't get these guys to understand now that this is how this place needs to be, and I'll say this real quick, because you said from the ground up, I think one of the things that drives me crazy is when guys say, well, until the administration, makes decisions, this place is going to be a mess. Okay, I hear you. And I can't completely argue that point. But you have a firehouse with people in it. It is your crew. That is your district. Those are your guys. Those are your girls. You have got to make sure you're doing what you do with your people to get the job done. Lead your men, lead your women, train them to be leaders if they're willing to do it. This whole, well, the administration screwed up, you don't understand, there's nothing we can do. It's straight up garbage. Yeah. I don't believe it. Absolutely. And it is from the ground up, because you have to come in every single day, learn your job, do it right, train the guy next to you. And when you don't do it right, just be willing to say you didn't do it right. But to blame the administration constantly about the state of, your stations or your crews, your progress, that didn't happen when I was at Engine 2. We just trained. Yep. And I learned very quickly that I was in a bubble, but you know what? It taught me to recreate the bubble. Yep. Make sure when your guys leave your house, if you're a station officer, and even if you're not, make sure the guys that you're influencing, just as an informal leader or just a guy in the firehouse, just leave them with something. Yep. But the administration, I can't take it anymore, man. We can literally do what we have to do with our men and women. You can change a guy in a conversation. You just got to be willing to have the conversation. But
yeah, that's something right there. I mean, you're basically everything, excuse me, everything you have said is, I think we line up very closely, and Jared was very very on point of hooking us up together. But you're speaking of literally a mindset that I have had to work myself into currently.
Right.
Sorry. And that's that, man, things are bad right now. Leadership is this and that, and all everything you just said. That is what we're living in, and that
Right.
is not just your department, my department. That is, man, that the more I reach out and meet people across the nation and even the world, I feel like we work for the same department, and
Right.
it's so weird. But that's exact what you said is exactly what we need to focus on. It's what I love the most about being a station officer is that I can either go to a a firehouse that I love to go to, or I can go to a firehouse that I dread going to. Either way,
Right.
it's my fault, or it's up to me.
Absolutely.
I have that opportunity to make that place a great place to be. I don't care what the people above me are doing. I
Yep.
don't care what rules are coming down. I don't care, what they're throwing a fit of. It doesn't matter. Okay, we'll deal with those things as quickly as we can. We'll get them out of the
Right.
way, and then we're going to have a good time.
Right.
And that is the best part of this job, is that I don't care what's going on. And people that have listened to my stuff, they know we do have some things going on right now. We literally are going through some struggles right now.
Right.
But I have had a better time this past couple weeks at the firehouse than I have in quite a while,
Right.
because we've had some personnel changes here lately. We we have had a breath of fresh air. We've gotten rid of some negativity. It's just we're having fun again. We're sitting around the table, talking, enjoying ourselves. We were sitting outside last shift, hanging out, telling stories after dinner. A couple of
That's
guys are
great.
smoking some cigars,
Yep.
and a structure fire drops. And it's like, man, this is what the firehouse is about right here. This is what
Absolutely,
it's
man.
about. And to know what that's like, I've been a firefighter for 19 years, so I've been a part of crews that we've had good times like that.
Right.
To know what that's like, and then to have it taken away by the
Oh,
negativity and
it's
the
hard.
down, and then to get it back though, that's
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's like, oh wow, man, I
Right.
remember what this is like. This
Yeah.
is I want to fight for this. But to your point, that's what we need to focus on.
Right.
It doesn't matter what's going on exteriorly. We can make our small circle, which is our firehouse, our crew, we can
Yep.
make that bet as good as we can. And
Absolutely.
you talked about you can't really emulate the engine two crew, but you can use that as a guide,
Oh,
to for your
110%.
vision. Yeah, you're
Yep.
to create the culture that you want.
Yep.
And that's it. I love it. I love all of that stuff. That's exactly, this is what we need. The
Yeah.
fire service needs to hear this talk. They need to be engaged in these kind of conversations, because man, this is where we're going to get better.
Yeah.
We can't depend on administration to get better. Why would we depend on, you know, other people to make this better? It's
Right.
up to us.
No, that's man, that's such a good point. I'm like you, like how the administration and okay, like, well, what do we do? Make the firehouse better, make your guys better. And we still me and Jared talk a lot. We're like, what are we gonna do? Like, this is our department, and I'll be honest, like, there's this old saying that you're not a prophet in your own hometown. I could
Yeah.
take I could take what me and you were talking about right now, and I could go to Montana, volunteer fire department on Main Street, and they'd be like, this guy is a freaking god.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying anything special,
No, I
but
know.
then
Yeah.
then I go talk to the guys at Station 7 in Norfolk, and they're like, shut up, dude. Like, we don't want to
Yeah.
hear it.
Yeah.
So it's once you can get over and around that, and then
Yeah.
realize that it's not about scrutiny and who's listening and who's not. It's about who is going to listen.
Yeah.
And if there's one or two people, man, it's worth it. And one of the things, me and Jared constantly talk about is I'm like, once again, I wrote about it in the book, solutions, not problems. I am great at bringing a problem to the table. I'm like the best. I'm like, what is going on with XYZ? And then everybody starts talking. And then I've turned around to like, okay, what are we going to do about it? And that's something I've had to challenge, myself on constantly. We have no formal leadership training in our city. We have nothing to develop our members formally in our city. All we have is an academy that they developed about 10 years ago. It was a great start. It's completely outdated. So at this point, when you get tossed a badge, if you haven't done anything to develop yourself as a leader, you're on your own. And so I've known that for a while. Jared's known it for a while, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So I'm in the process of submitting a proposal to do a leadership work group to get the ball rolling. Like you said, this is a conversation that I've recently started having with people, and I'm like, oh, this is everywhere.
Oh yeah.
But now I'm reaching out to people who are like, hey, look, it took me 12 years to get that done. Here is the entire packet. Erase my city's name and put your name on it and roll with it. And I'm like, the willingness for the fire community that is passionate and cares to develop leadership in here. I was telling Jerry the other day, this is mind blowing. I'm over here like, how are we not developing our people? And I'm just getting ready to walk, in the steps of some other people that have pioneered the way for me to do it here. And it does nothing but make the fire service better, and there's always the naysayers. There's always the people that don't want to do it, and I think it's a long time thing. You got firefighters, and then you have employees of the fire service. And it is what it is. And if you're a firefighter, I would say continue to develop yourself. I mean, I'm a lieutenant, you're a captain, but we were firefighters at some point. And that doesn't go away. Now we have a title and we're expected to do our job. But I don't come out and tell people like, hey, I'm a lieutenant. When people ask what I do, I tell them I'm a fireman, and if they ask further, I tell them I'm a lieutenant on ladder 8, but I'm a fireman at heart, and I love it. It's what I want to do. So I'm like, if you're here, you need to be here. Let's make yourself better. Let's make the fire service better. If you don't want to be here, man, I'd really love for you to find a new job, because you're not helping anybody. And like I said earlier, man, it is not personal. It is purely professional. And public safety is one of the only professions that puts in a 5th string player in a 1st string position. And we save lives.
And it's okay with it.
Yeah, we save lives on a daily. The NFL would never put a 5th string quarterback in the NFL on Super Bowl Sunday, but we will grab that guy that hasn't done anything in 20 years and put him in the acting chair of a second alarm fire. And when he screws up, we really can't say too much because we didn't develop him. So we can put him in a chair, we can yell at him, we can write him up, we can reprimand him, but at the end of the day, is it all his fault? No. Or is it our fault for not taking it seriously and developing our people?
One of the favorite quotes of mine that I go along with what you're saying is Scott Thompson. He calls himself a firefighter with fire chief responsibilities.
He's a man.
And I love that. And that's what, I'll steal it from him all day long. I am a firefighter with captain responsibilities. And that's how I want to approach every shift. I want to learn how to be a better firefighter still. Am I a firefighter? Not by the book, terms in the book,
right.
But I got to learn the ways of a firefighter so that I can teach the firefighters under me how to be firefighters. And that brings up a point that I want to make really quick, because I thought about it earlier, and I want to talk about this with you. This came up in my last episode with Chief Jacob Johnson. We talked about some informal leadership and the lack of informal leadership. And it kind of came to me. It's like, so like you said, we're good at bringing up problems, but what's the solution? So it just kind of clicked while we were talking is, okay, so this is where we're at. The fire service is struggling with the lack of informal leadership, lack of
Right.
senior firefighters doing what senior firefighters should do.
Right.
So what's the solution? Well, from my perspective, what I can do is I can start teaching those senior people how to be senior people.
Yep.
Maybe they weren't very good senior firefighters to that point. Maybe it's because they weren't ever taught how to be senior firefighters. So, you
Absolutely.
know, that's my job to teach them, hey, you have 14 years on as a firefighter.
Yeah.
Our other firefighter has 3 on. It's your job to teach them
Yep.
how to be a better firefighter. This is how you do it. And so I bring that up, and like I said, I want to hear your kind of thoughts on it too. But I bring it up because it's easy for me to sit in my office as a captain.
Yep.
I have 19 years on. I've been in office. I've been outside of the role of firefighter for probably 15, 16 years.
Right.
It's easy for me to say, hey, go lead that firefighter, teach him how to be a firefighter,
Yep.
whatever, and just be completely hands off. But it's not the way it's going to get better.
Right.
I have got to do something about it. I have got to start teaching these next level people so that they can learn how to be that leader if they don't know already. And so talk to me
Yeah.
about that, kind of how you feel about that.
Yeah, so no, I completely agree with you. Some guys just weren't shown how to do it. And you got a 15-year guy and a 3-year guy, like you said, we're doing firefighter math, like you should be working with this guy. And so I do think I think one thing that the business world has picked up on is empowerment, and the fire service is behind on some of these terms and these words, and they're old school words. Empowerment's like an old word.
Yeah.
It's not something new that somebody came up with, but we have to. I think some of these guys were never empowered. They came in, they just were told, suck it up. This is your job, be a fireman. They were never given responsibilities. Maybe they worked for a captain that was a micromanager. They're burnt out, they're frustrated. Maybe they've been riding the box for the last 20 years. They don't want to do this anymore. And this is going to sound like a Disney movie, but nobody believes in this guy anymore to the
Yeah.
point where he doesn't even believe in himself. And if you
Yeah.
got a guy that doesn't believe in himself, why would he train a rookie fireman? He doesn't even believe that he can hardly do the job anymore. He's thinking about leaving at 15 years. He's already applied at other places that we don't even know about. And we're not empowering our people. And I
Yeah.
think 3 things that I go to work with every day, and I've told myself this for years, and if I'm not doing these 3 things, then I have to check myself, because these are 3 things that I have to do for my firemen. I need to strengthen them, I need to empower them, and I need to encourage them. Now, however they need me to do that, whether it's personally, they share something in their personal life, they share something at work, they share something about it could be whatever. But I really honestly try and make sure when I have a conversation with them, if they didn't leave that conversation strengthened, encouraged, and empowered, then I didn't do my job, not as an officer. I didn't do my job as Josh Chase.
Yeah.
Those are principles that I live by as a person.
Yeah.
So, like you said, I'm Josh Chase. I wear a shirt that says lieutenant on it. They tossed me a badge, but um, I don't do that all the time. Well, when I do, I'm like, man, was he strengthened? Was he encouraged? Was he empowered?
Yeah.
If you look at the definition of strength is the capacity for somebody to succeed under great pressure. So to think that you can give somebody, the capacity to succeed under a great amount of pressure, you just described our job.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally just described our job, and our job is to strengthen, encourage, and empower those senior men to show them, like, hey, listen, I actually need you. Maybe your last officer micromanaged, he didn't need you, he didn't want to use you. I'm telling you right now, I actually need you to do more than cook. Like, yes, your chili is amazing, and I don't want you to stop making it, but maybe let somebody else cook one day and show this guy how to stretch a hose line.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, man, I think empowering our people is huge. Empowering our senior guys, showing them that we still care. There's a lot of guys, they just they don't think people care.
Yeah.
And I think one of my biggest focuses this past year being a lieutenant, I didn't know what to expect. I knew how I wanted to be a lieutenant. I had an idea of how my first year was going to go. And then I got this idea. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build relationships. That's what I'm going to do my first year as an officer.
Yeah.
I have the skills. I'm sure I'm going to get thrown a curveball, but I feel like I prepared myself to the point where I can really focus on building relationships this year. So in building relationships, you get to learn who's burned out. You get to learn who's not as strong as they want to be.
Yeah.
You get to learn who's strong and they're just not using it anymore. You get to know who the players are on your team when you build the relationships with them, and then you can start to build and encourage them in the areas that they need it. Not everybody's the same. I mean, I got 3 kids running around at home and they're not all the same. I don't strengthen and encourage them in all the same ways. I
Yeah.
got a 20-year-old daughter, I got a 15-year-old son, and a 12-year-old daughter. They're all completely different. My 20-year-old daughter, wants life advice, but she doesn't take it. And then my youngest daughter just wants to bake cookies. And my son's 15 years old and he already thinks he's driving and has an apartment, in his head somewhere. So
Yeah.
everybody's so different.
Yeah.
But it works the same way in the firehouse, man. Like some guys, you just have to find what makes them tick,
Yeah.
and you literally bring the leader out of them. But you got to build relationships with those guys. You have to get to know the people.
Yeah. Man, I love the strength and empower and courage. That's really cool to hear you talk about it, and just wrote it down and just looking at it, and kind of what you're talking about is another thought of mine is, yeah, I want to be a leader that, creates better firefighters. I want to
Right.
be a leader that, creates better leaders. But you know what? I want to be a leader at my firehouse that helps people to become better people.
Right.
No,
That's good.
okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole fire service is important, and I love it, and I want us to be as good as possible, but
Right.
dude, we're spending a third of our lives with these people. It's got to be bigger than
Absolutely.
that. It's got to
Yeah.
be bigger than that. And
Yeah.
so, that I almost feel like you're kind of getting to a new level of leadership right there when you're not only creating a crew that's jam up and all that stuff that we're talking about, but we're going beyond that, and we're learning how to become better people,
Right.
better dads and moms, and all that. You're getting into what really true leadership should be. It,
Right.
it goes beyond the walls of the firehouse. So that's
Yeah.
good stuff.
No, I appreciate that. It does, man. It took me years to really understand and learn that and put the two together. I would say Engine 2 really gave me a good grasp of the job and how to be a fireman, the skills, be aggressive engine company, get in there, get the job done. I learned everything about the fire service from that station for me to build on and make me a better fireman.
Yep.
But the next house that I went to, they really taught me about how to be a good person in the fire service and how to actually build relationships with each
Yep.
other. These guys cared about the job, they really did, but they had more time on the job and they understood, like you just said, hey, we live together.
Yep.
That guy's married and he's going through a divorce. This guy's getting ready to get married. This guy's
Yep.
having a kid. What are you going through? Man, we had so many conversations in the galley where, like you just said, whether you like it or not, it's outside the 4 walls and you come into work with this stuff and it will
Yep.
affect your job performance.
Oh yeah.
And if you have an officer who truly cares about his crew, then your firefighters are a lot different.
Yeah.
My captain back then, he knew my wife's name, he knew my kids' names. He came to the barbecues, he had barbecues, we went to each other's birthday parties, and man, we were like the freaking Ladder 49 movie where everybody's
Yeah.
but when I left that station, it wasn't like that everywhere.
Yeah.
And we still all get together every now and then when we can, but you can still, maybe it's not the Ladder 49 crew and maybe you're not at Engine 2, but that's still something you can do in your firehouse. You can still
Yeah.
build those relationships at work. 33% of your life,
Yep.
you can do it at work. And I think I just listened to your podcast with Mark Alone the other day, and he was just talking about the engine bay
Yep.
and the article that he wrote. And this
Yep.
kind of just a back door into what he was saying. You kind of got to go in there and, like, it's your second home. This is your second family.
Yeah.
And do you want to go in there and not like your family, or do you want to get along with your family? And will you get along with everybody? No, there are going to be guys in your career where you're like, I can't freaking stand this dude.
Yeah.
And then it's just time to be professional and just do what you get paid to do, and manage your language and emotions.
Yeah.
But man, I got a 25 years right now, my ladder operator, and we're talking about stuff that has nothing to do with work. I know what's going on. I know how he feels about the department. I know how he feels about the ambulance. He's like, hey Lou, let me talk to you about my wife and my kids. And I'm not asking him anymore.
Yeah.
He's walking in the galley and he's talking about it. So I'm like, we're having conversations about yesterday. Me and my buddy told, us the same story about our kids. These guys work for me. We're having like you said, we're making each other better dads. I called the guy the other day off duty, and I was like, hey man, I need some dad advice. The guy works for me at work, but he's a dad in real life.
Yeah.
And he's been a dad the same amount of time I've been a dad. And he already went through what I went through, what he went through with his daughter. So it really is about, yes, man, I am passionate about this job. I want to do good at it. I want you to do good at it. I want to be aggressive. I want to get in there and get it. I want to make grabs. I want to make rescues. I want to do what I was trained to do. I want to do all this stuff. I want to be the best fire company in the world. That's truly deep down what I want. But at the end of that, if I can't build relationships and build trust with my crew, none of that really matters.
Yeah.
And, I would say I was there at a point in my career where like, this is all that matters. And life showed me, yes, this is important. But building those relationships and finding balance, that's really what matters. Because if you can do both, man, you talk about a good leader. And now I'm back to Engine 2 and what I saw when I first came in. Didn't see it back then, but I'm just doing what he taught me to do now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of, you talked about earlier, you wanted to kind of create that Engine 2 environment. You didn't think, then I discussed the whole vision, and then you brought up, well, that second crew you were part of kind of taught you a different aspect of
Yep.
life and different, well, that, everything that we're talking about, and, you're really preaching this message of starting now. Don't wait, start now. I love it. But I want to take it even further. And this is something that I did, and it's really helped me when I got into that formal role, is start writing these things down.
Yeah.
Write
Yeah.
down the good lessons you're learning. Write
Right.
down okay, Captain Smith did, when I was working for him, he was great at making me feel this way. I want to
Right.
lead people that way.
Right.
Captain Jones, I hated working for him because he treated me like this. I don't ever want to, what I
Right.
just having a running list of these things. And that's kind of where I started as far as creating my mission, the culture that I wanted to create someday, as a formal leader. And I
Right.
still have the ongoing workings of that list that started, probably 12 years ago. And
Yeah. It's good.
that's been very helpful to me to have that in writing, and it evolves, as I grow, as I change, it changes.
Yep.
But just having that there to kind of work off of, and as a reminder even, and those are important things.
Yeah.
And it's helpful in a role of what we're really at the base of what we're talking about here, is where we start, early, and just kind of grow through the years. And so that's something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah. That's good. I like the fact that you said, take what you're learning and write it down. And then you have like, you have something to go back to, so there's this old parable, and it talks about vision. And if you don't have vision, then there's no progress.
Yeah.
So man, you talk about truth. If you don't have any vision, if you don't have any goals, you're actually not going anywhere. And I,
Yeah.
I think it really is important in the fire service to have some kind of personal vision statement or some kind of goals to get you somewhere.
Yeah.
You talked about writing stuff down, so you write stuff down over the years, and without even realizing it, you write stuff down for 10 years, you've started developing, your vision, maybe your goal, your mission statement of what kind of leader you actually want to be. You're
Yep.
developing yourself, because I think, and that's one thing that is dangerous, and really in any career, just you could just take this to life. If you don't have any vision or any goals, you're not really doing anything. You're not
Yep.
going anywhere.
Yep.
I would never get in a car and just drive in circles and no destination. I wouldn't do it. And
Yep.
I'm 99% of the people listening to would never just get in their car and say, I'm going to drive in circles. When you get in your car, you have a destination in mind. You turn the key, you press the gas, and you go there. You
Yep.
may stop and get gas. You may do something on the way there. It may take you longer than expected, but you have a destination, you have a vision, you have a goal. So why is the fire service any different?
Yep.
Maybe your goal isn't to be an officer. Maybe your goal, like you just said, is to like, well, develop my game plan just as a leader in case I get promoted someday. Maybe your goal is to just take whatever the goal is. You got to have some kind of vision, or you're not going anywhere.
Yep.
One of the things I'm probably going to put out something about this next week is I've been telling my guys at work, and they kind of laughing at me because I say it all the time now. I'm like, comfort kills progress. So
Yep.
anytime they look at me and they're like, oh yeah, well, I'm like, Lieutenant, why are we doing that? I'm like, comfort kills progress. And they're like, oh my gosh, there he goes again. I'll write it on the board, I'll write on the bottom of a hard workout. And I started doing things at work to show them that I really believe it. I hate the assault bike. I hate it. I don't know anybody that likes the assault bike. If you do,
Uh-huh.
there's something mentally wrong with you. I hate it. I'd rather run, or I'd rather row. I'd really rather row because I don't really like to run either.
Yep.
But so I hate the assault bike. So one day I wrote "Comfort kills progress" on the bottom of the workout, and I chose the rower over the assault bike. And I just kind of called myself out, and I'm not like, hey, look at me by any means at this point. I just told my guys like, hey, if I'm not on that assault bike during the workouts from now on, you have every right to remove me from the rower and put me back on that thing because I hate it. But it will, man. You get comfortable in your career, you start to settle, and you talk about something that'll kill progress. No
Yep.
vision, you're dead in the water. You're
Yep.
comfortable, you're dead in the water. And I think as leaders, whatever position you're in, informal, formal, wanting to be one, man, if you're getting comfortable and you're settling, well, it can be infectious. You
Yep.
can influence people in a bad way, and that stuff happens too. So the good leaders, bad leaders. Hitler was a good leader, and I
Yep.
think people would be like, "Oh, no, look what he did." I'm like, the guy influenced
Yep.
all these people to commit genocide. He was
Yep.
a great leader. If we're talking about the definition of leadership,
Just yeah, at the base of
yeah,
it. Yep.
yeah, we're just talking about the core definition. Yeah, I do not agree with Hitler or anything that he did.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about, hey, just look at the definition.
Yep.
So you can lead people in the wrong direction. And I think
Oh yeah.
getting comfortable and settling and not having a vision or goals, it's
Yep.
freaking dangerous in our job.
Yeah. It's it's just interesting, all this stuff we're talking about. I created something here a couple of weeks ago. I just something that I was driven to do and finally figured I needed to start something. But the underground leadership movement is just something I
Right.
started, kind of a short video series. So the third one I put out is basically building relationships as a leader. It's exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
The last one I put out is vision, creating a vision. And that's what we're talking about.
Right.
And and for me, the way I picture it is that vision is a target.
Yep.
If I don't have a target, what am I shooting at? What am I
Yeah.
even aiming at? You don't, you exactly what you're saying. You don't have a end game and goal, then how do you even know how to lead?
Right.
What is steering my leadership style if I don't know what I'm leading towards? And
Right.
so yeah, it's very important to know what the heck you're wanting to gain out of this whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I think it's funny because we'll just get elementary with it. You look at the term leadership, and then we'll just take part of the word. It's lead. So you're leading people. So, well, if I'm sitting still, I'm not leading anybody. Leaders take people places. That's what it's lead. It's literally leading. If I was to lead you to the grocery store or lead you in a direction or lead you downstairs or upstairs or wherever, I'm taking you somewhere. So when we think, okay, well, I'm in a leadership role, you may be in the role, but if you're not going anywhere, you're not leading. And I don't mean walking, talking, even in your mentality. If you're
Hmm.
not going anywhere, you have no plan on moving forward and making yourself better, you're not leading. You could be in the position, but you're not leading.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't think, honestly, some people just have no idea. They just don't know.
Yeah.
Now, there are people that know and they're lazy and they just don't care, but there are some people that they just don't know. They would hear, man, I've been stuck for 10 years. That's a good point. I like leaders have followers. And I hate when people say, well, if you look around and nobody's following, you're not leading. Well, if you're not going anywhere, why would anybody? There's no
Yeah.
followers. You're
Yeah.
all kind of standing around wondering what's going on. And I think there's a lot of companies, a lot of
Oh
fire
yeah.
companies standing around going, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Because their officers are standing still. And I
Yeah.
think that's where, that's the whole reason I wrote this book, was if that's your crew and you see that and you take the it's not my job mentality, and then something happens, bro, it's on you.
Yeah.
Like, do not watch your officer fail and let your whole crew fail because you didn't want to step up and lead and you have the skills and abilities to do it.
Yeah.
You you don't have to have the title to lead. I cannot say it enough. And if your crew is standing still with your officer, look, the fire service doesn't owe you a thing. Like, you came in here, you took the oath.
Yeah.
So let's do your job, especially if you know you have the skills and abilities. I get it. If you're like, hey, I'm not up for this. I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if I'm up for the challenge. Okay, well, that's why there's books out there. That's why there's podcasts out there. That's why there's
Yeah.
conferences out there. So you can rise to the challenge and gain knowledge and put yourself in that position. But man, leadership, you have to go somewhere. And like you said, vision's a freaking target.
Yeah.
If there's no target and you have a gun, what what are you, just shooting blindly? Like, you're wasting ammunition, wasting resources, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like so many ideas in the fire service, they go to death by committee because there's no plan of action at the end.
Yeah.
Sit around and talk, and then nothing gets done. But
Yeah. Those crews you're talking about, the crews, and I see it a lot too, and it literally makes me sad that
right,
they've got these leaders that were these officers that just they're not engaged. They're buying their time, you know, just hanging out, just making money, all that, that type of it makes me sad because that's also a crew with at least one or two people on it that want to do something,
oh yeah,
and they can't because of their leadership. But
yep,
that just tells you right there, in the absence of formal leadership, the the importance of, if I said that, in the absence of formal leadership, the importance of that informal leader just
yep,
skyrockets.
yep,
That's where it's vital. And I don't care if it that formal leader takes it personal, and I don't care. Somebody's got to
yeah,
lead something.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. That's the thing. It's like, you don't have a choice. Like, at this point, I'm like, the fire service literally needs you to step up. It's not even about your department at this point. This is a collective group of men and women that have taken an oath to do something, a craft, a profession that's been around since, very early times. So here we are. Just look, at the bottom of my email when I became lieutenant, I was like, what am I going to have on the bottom? Is it going to be some cool quote? I looked and there's all this stuff, and I don't even like the New England Patriots. I hate the New England Patriots, but Belichick said something really simple and it lined up with my mantra: do your job. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I need you to do. Just do your job. And if you're like, well, I don't know what my job is, well, it's probably time to find out, because
Yeah.
somebody tossed you a badge. So, I mean, I worked with a guy recently, and a couple years on the job, still pretty green. And ask me about some stuff that he really should already know.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of looked at him and I said, we can train on that, but you realize you hold the certification to do that already. The
Yeah.
training part of that, like what you're asking for, that's over. We're building on what you already learned. And it's
Yeah.
like, so there was a disconnect somewhere. And it's not that I won't help develop him, but I'm like, you got to do your job. And I don't know. And this is Mark Davison posted something not too long ago on in his group. They were hiring, I think, for Fairfax or somewhere, some locally around there.
Yeah.
And he posted a realistic, this is what the fire service does. If you want to be up at 2 a.m, pick up
Mm-hmm.
it was a
Yeah.
nice little paragraph. And I was like, finally, because I think we don't really explain to people what we actually do.
Yeah.
They think it's cool. They come in here and they're like, oh, so we got to run in that building that's on fire. I'm like, yes, that's our destination. And
Yeah.
they don't understand. I mean, I worked with a recruit academy back in 2015. The first day, there was a video going around from Loudoun County back like 2007, 2008. Really bad fire, 2-story residential structure. The ladder operator smashed a window on the second floor. The guys were inside. I mean, obviously it wasn't intentional. He was just trying to ventilate. They
Yeah.
ended up eating carpet. I mean, it was bad. The radio traffic was playing through the whole YouTube video. I showed that the first day of the academy for a reason.
Yeah.
And I showed it to them before they went home. Well, the next morning, somebody resigned. They came in and they were like, hey, I'm good. I don't want to do this. And I was like, well, hang on a second. Like, what happened? They're like, it's not that simple. You got to write a letter and, what's up? Well, I watched the video yesterday. I didn't realize that's what you guys did. And, but you know what? I have a lot of respect for that guy because he was honest.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, I
Yep.
don't want to run in a building like that and risk my life. I mean, these guys are screaming on the radio because it's so hot.
Yeah.
Do I want to be in that position? Absolutely not. Do I recognize that I could be in that position? Absolutely yes.
Yeah.
But I also believe that day I did the fire service a service and
Yeah.
showed those people this is actually as bad as it can get. To the point where these guys were lucky and walked away with their lives, but people die on a regular basis. Firemen die, and the numbers really haven't gone down in a long time. It's the average of 100
Yeah.
firemen a year, and it's pretty much stayed around there. And none of those guys went to work and said, today's my last day. So just
Yeah.
I think it's really simple. If you just do your job, and if you don't know what your job is, I think it's your responsibility to find out what your job is and how to do it well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you, man. I completely agree with that. One more quote out of the book that I want to point out. It says, "The point is, if you feel called to lead, do it." And
Right.
again, you talked about a simple, do your job. That's pretty cut and dry right there. If you
Right.
feel called to lead, do it. And I even kind of stretch it out further than that. If there's anything you feel called to do, it's time to do it. It's time to step
Right.
up. Like you talked about before we started recording. You had this information for this book, and you were just going to sit on it. And
Yep.
Jared kind of pushed you in the direction of doing something with it. And there are so many people out there that have some great knowledge, so many people
Yeah.
out there that have great stories that have lived through challenges and fought and won. And there are so many more out there that need to hear that, because that's
Yeah.
what they're doing right now. And they need to know they aren't alone. They need to
Yep.
know that this person is doing what I am doing, but they
Yep.
made it through the other side. They are
Absolutely.
better because of it. And so if you want to kind of just speak to a little bit of that, that story of sitting on that for a little bit and being
Yeah.
pushed to do it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, I mean, I had this idea of jump seat leadership probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I think when Jared really launched Trial by Fire as its own thing. And I let the whole, we talked about this earlier, you're not a prophet in your own hometown kind of thing get in my head.
Yeah.
What are people going to say? I'm just an engine 2 guy. What do I know? Blah, blah, blah. So I let it sit around. And last year, I took the promotional exam, and you sit on a list forever. You're just waiting to get promoted at this point. If you're hoping to get promoted, I did pretty well, and I'm a writer. I've written a couple of books, and I wanted to write something for the fire service. I wanted to write something about my experiences that I really thought could help. I was like, I'm moving into this lieutenant's position now. What would I tell guys? What would I tell the men and women under me, with my mistakes? I'm pretty honest with some stuff in the book. We talked offline. I tell you even more stuff. We all make mistakes. So I'm like, what would I tell these people? What can I share from my career? I really believe I have something to bring to the fire service. And so I jammed it out. I just sat down, between my house, Starbucks, and work. I'm just writing. So I wrote the document, and I sent it to Jared in one long document, and he was like, dude, this is solid. And Jared's my buddy. I'm thinking, he just thinks it's solid. I wrote about Engine 2 in the book, and he's like, you got some really good stuff in here. What are you going to do with it? And I'm like, I think I'm going to turn it into a book. He's like, it's a lot of good articles too. You could go 100 different ways. And I was like, I don't want to break into the article scene. At least not now. We'll see. So I got promoted, and then like I said earlier, my focus was building relationships. So I kind of put everything on hold. Still had the book. I got bored at work, I would kind of tweak it, add something here and there. And I got to the point where I was like, man, I'm not gonna put this out. Like, I've written other books. I'm not great at marketing. I don't want to be a New York Times bestseller. I believe in a message. So I wrote it, so man, that went on for probably about a year. And it was, I guess it was about August, September, fall, this past fall. And Jared called me because I had sent it to him, and he'd already read it. And he's like, hey, I'm reading over your book. And I'm like, well, what book? By that time, I just kind of put it on the shelf. Mm-hmm. And he's like, the Jump Seat Leadership book. And like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Great. He's like, so what are we doing? I'm like, we are doing nothing. I really was just going to sit on it. And, he'd been talking to guys all over the country, guys like you, Jake Barnes, Mark Alone. He's all over the place, talking to names that I like kind of heard or haven't heard of. Mm-hmm. And he's like, we need this. And I'm like, we'll see. Like, I don't know. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. So I decide I'm just gonna, I make a cover. I've taught myself how to do stuff to save money. So I know how to make my book covers. I know how to self-publish. I have an editor. It cost me next to nothing to publish it. So I'm like, all right, I'll break even. I don't even care about the money. I'll break even. After that, it's about the message. And I still feel that way. This book's about the message. Oh, yeah. So I finally decide. Jared kind of gives me a deadline. He's like, it needs to be out in January. And it took me a little bit because then when I figured out I was really going to put it out, I really started to tweak it, really started to work with an editor. I was like, I want to get the message solid. I want to convey what I want to convey. I wanted to kind of punch you in the face a little bit, but also maybe put my shoulder around you like a big brother and pull you back in, and hey, we can do this together. Yeah. But I don't want to water down everybody can be a leader message either. Yeah. So, but he really, he pushed me. And my biggest concern was, everybody's doing this stuff. Everybody's doing it already. What do I have to offer the fire service? Yeah. And that was my biggest, I guess, defense was, what do I have to offer? And, his caveat was, you have yourself to offer. These are your experiences. You communicate differently than other people, and you will resonate differently than I can resonate with people. Jared preaches more of we're both leadership guys, and he's more of a, company officer, no bullshit leadership kind of level. And here I am, like, I love his message, but I'm looking at the guys where, forget company officer, you better do this shit now. Yeah. Like, so man, he really pushed me to do it. I put it out. I didn't know what the response was going to be. And so I kind of put it out there and offer it for free for a weekend. Then I start getting mixed up in the numbers. I'm like, oh man, I don't know who's going to download this thing, who's going to read it, but I get a couple of messages back from guys I don't know that are like, this book literally changed the course of my career. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. One person, one person. And I was like, if I sell 1 million books, great. that one guy was like, hey, this literally changed the course of my entire career.
Yeah.
So if that's who the book was for, that's who it's for, you know. And honestly, him pushing me to actually release this and get it out has kind of reignited a passion inside of me, because now I'm like, guys like you know, I've just talked to Jake Barnes not too long ago. Me and Jared are having conversations about stuff again. When you write a book like this, it's like self-convicting. You check
Oh yeah.
yourself too.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, I'm
absolutely.
writing this out, I'm giving it to people, and I'm like, well, I better be doing this,
Yep.
you know, and
Yep.
if I'm not, I got to fix myself. But man, he really pushed me to do this. And man, it opened me up to a community of men and women are out there that actually care.
Yep.
You know, I texted him the other day. I was like, this is freaking weird. Like, you like, and I've thanked him probably 100 times now, where he's like, yeah, no problem, man. Like, no big deal, whatever. But I wasn't expecting, you know, if anything, I love the message in the book. I wouldn't have written it. I think people need to read it. I think if you don't have a copy, you need to get it. I think if you're an officer, you need to get it for your guys.
Yep.
Like, I don't think you'll be disappointed. You know, I'll come teach it. I'll do whatever you need me to do to come help the fire service. But more important than ever, I've gained a community of brothers and sisters that we're already out there,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, doing this. And here I am, brand new to this, you know, writing about the fire service and sharing. And I've been so, I'll use the word blessed by the reception of the men and women who are like, yes, let's do this. Let's do it together. We're going to tackle this thing. If you need anything, freaking call me. And I mean, call me. You
Yep.
know, I got guys a couple cities away, like, you want to grab a beer in town, let me know. I'm like, all I did was write a message. But Jared really pushed me to write this message, and
Yep.
you know, it's great that people are reading it, and it's great that it's impacting them. But more than anything else, I've gained a community that really was just waiting for me to step into. And
Yep.
to your point, um, if you're called to do anything, you just need to do it.
Yep.
You know, I felt like I was called to spread a message, and now I've gained this community of men and women, who are, you know, I'm a leadership guy, whether it's Army, life, fire service. I am a student of leadership. My wife gives me a hard time because I don't read anything else except for leadership books. But it's me, you know.
Yep.
I'm a somebody punch me in the face and tell me what to do kind of guy, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, if you're called to do anything, just echo what you said. You need to do it, and you probably need to do it now, sooner than later. I mean, look at what's going on in the world. If you
Yep.
can help not just the fire service, but humanity in any way, it's a really good time. It's a really
Yep.
good time.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that story for everybody out there, but for me too. I mean, it is a trap that is very easily fallen into by anybody that's doing really anything, I guess. But
Right.
for me, this podcast thing, we talked about comfort zone earlier. This podcast
Yep.
thing is a stretch out of my comfort zone. So just being
Right.
here doing this is a good thing. But there are a million podcasts. Shoot, it seems like there's 1,000 just fire service podcasts. They're
Right.
they're everywhere. So it's who the heck am I to feel like I should be doing this
Yeah.
compared to some of the big names that are doing this and that have done this for years. But at the same time, uh, even if nobody is listening to it, just like this conversation, I don't know how long we've been on, hour and a half, hour. So
Right.
uh, just what I have learned, just making myself better. At the
Right.
very least, I have grown. So okay, we can start there, and if we can go any further than that, that's great. But
Yeah.
I've been sitting on a lot of other things as well, and time wise, yeah, that's going to be a problem finding time to do other
Right.
things.
Right.
But that aside, there shouldn't be a reason to not push forward. If
Yeah.
you feel pressure inside that this is something you want to do or that you need to do, a calling, whatever you want to call it, if it's there, it's worth pushing out, pushing
Yeah.
forward, because somebody needs to hear it. Somebody out
Yeah.
there needs to be a part of it. And so yeah, I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. So I'm gonna call somebody out here. I haven't even met him. I've just read his stuff, and he's commented on a couple Facebook posts. Mark alone,
Oh
this
yeah,
guy, like if you're listening to this, you need
yeah,
to write a book. This, you
yeah,
talk about a gifted writer. So
yeah,
somebody steered me to his stuff, and they were like, "Oh, your stuff is similar to Mark's," and I looked at it and I was like, "I'm reading the professor's work, and I'm a
yeah,
student."
yeah.
Like that's what I felt like when I read his words. And so I've never even met this guy face to face, but I'm gonna
Yeah,
pull the fireman card. Like, Mark, if you're listening, it's book time, buddy, and you call me or Jared when you're ready, because man, it needs to happen.
yeah. Yeah, Mark is somebody I would consider a good virtual friend that I have kind of
Yeah,
chatted with quite a bit, and that's probably you're probably describing my very first conversation with Mark.
right,
I reaching out to him and say, man, you are basically telling the world the same stuff that's inside of me. You're
right.
saying things that I would be writing if I wrote that.
Yeah,
And that's interesting. But it's that's the cool thing about all this stuff is like you said, there is that community, and the more you reach out, the more you meet these people. And something else that's cool is right now I'm wearing Sean Duffy, Pablo Jenner's Build Your Culture hat.
right,
The more you look on Facebook, you see, the Build Your Culture guys, the Bearers of the Oath guys, the
right.
Fire Inside with Mark Alone. They're all wearing other people's stuff, but it's
Yep.
like that's that's it. We're not competing here. This
No.
is this is a team, and the team is not functioning as high as it can without the help of those other teammates. And that's what I love about it is there's so many awesome men and women doing the same things in different ways, and we can help each other.
Yep.
And so that is a really cool thing that I have been blessed to be a part of, for sure.
Yeah, and I think you just said it, man. And that's the thing that I've been most impressed with is the community that understands it's teamwork. And
Yep.
I'm living inside of it now, where I'm like, man, this is great.
Yep.
Um, we just truly want to. We really do want to make the fire service better. Well, it's the same message. Okay, I mean, it's leadership, it's passion, it's job skills, but you can reach people that I can't reach. Your life
Yep.
experiences are different than my life experiences,
Absolutely. Yep.
and you happen to be in the fire service. My life experiences are different, and I happen to be in the fire service.
Yep.
Um, I'm a no holds bar, punch you in the face, tell you what you got to hear kind of guy, and I don't care if it hurts your feelings when I walk away. Well, guess what? Not everybody receives messages like that.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they might need the guy who's like, come here, man, we need to talk for 10 minutes. And he can change that guy's life in a soft conversation.
Yep.
But then it's partnering with that guy that talks in that soft conversation that, hey man, this guy's not going to listen to me. Same message, but he won't listen to me
Yep.
because he doesn't communicate like that. And I think that's what's great when I'm learning
Oh
about the
yeah.
fire service. Like, and you've said it, there's these big, huge names out there. They relate to the people that they're going to relate to. And it's
Hmm.
great. I mean, it's great to be able to walk in the footsteps of these guys and, just on the build on the shoulders of what they've already done.
Yep.
But what you said earlier, like, I'm just doing a podcast. Well, you got the listeners, somebody's listening, and you're
Yep.
reaching people that you're supposed to reach. So just to piggyback off what you said, man, like,
Oh yeah.
you're doing it. This was out of your comfort zone, and somehow we found each other. So it's worth it that other people just step out of the comfort zone, do what you're called to do. Life, fire service, you take it however you want, but man, it's important. It really
Oh yeah.
is. And the teamwork, oh my gosh, man, you talk about motivating,
Yep.
being inspired again, whatever you want to
Absolutely.
call it, reigniting passion. I'm like, I feel like a different person at work,
Yep.
and it was a good year where I've been, and building relationships. Now I'm kind of like, okay, I built some relationships. Like, what can I get away with? Not in a bad way, but I'm like, okay, I built some relationships. Like, did I put enough in the bank to do this drill? Or did
Yep.
these guys believe me enough? Do they trust me enough to do this?
Yep.
So now I'm kind of, and I had a buddy call me out the other day at work. He was like, you've been here for a year and I see your game now. Because I've put some more training on the schedule this year than I had last
Mhm.
year. And but I've also, back to informal leadership, I've kind of, hey, what do you guys want to do? And if you bring something up, I'll let you plan it.
Yeah,
You bring me a plan. If it's 90% done, and help you with the other 10. But
yeah,
man, like I said, teamwork, the community that I feel like I've gained, guys that, we met today, we've been chatting on, text message, but the relationships that I'm building through Zoom and technology, and
oh yeah,
dude, it's been great, man. It's been
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's been a, I'm trying to think of how long. Podcast is not even a year old yet, but just kind of starting to meet people maybe a year and 3 or 4 months ago. But just thinking of all the great people that I've met just in that time, it's been really cool.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I've loved the conversation like I knew I
Yeah.
would. I love the book. Definitely want to really kind of push that on anybody that is willing to hear it, because it's definitely something that we all need to hear about. So, do you have anything to kind of close with? Any other thoughts that we didn't get to talk about?
No, I mean, I think I said everything. Obviously, I think it's a good book, and I think there's more where it came from. So, if you want the book, you can get it on Amazon. If you can get a hold of me through Facebook, you can get a hold of me uh, through the Jump Seat Leadership website. You know, it's a message, and if you can't grab my book, like I said, this is a team, right? So grab a book, grab something to make
Yep.
yourself better, grab anything, a book that's in the firehouse, just pick it up, just make yourself better, and I wrote another book to go right along with this a couple years ago. It's called Take the Lead, and it goes right along with what we're talking about. It's jump seat leadership, and then it kind of runs right into, take the lead, stay engaged once you take the lead, and then learning not to quit. And those are the biggest three things, I think, if you're going to be any kind of leader, informal, formal, jump seat leadership, whatever you want to call it. You got to make the decision to lead. Once you make the decision, you got to stay engaged, and that has all to do with vision and goals. And then once you start making progress, you can't quit. And I told my recruits this when I was in the academy. I'm not a fan of quitting is not an option. That is
Yeah.
complete garbage. It is always an option. And for some of us, it's the first option when things get hard. It's human nature. Things get hard. There's something that says you should quit. So I think it's realizing that it's an option, and then speaking to that option and being prepared when that option comes, kind of like what we've talked about a little bit, so that you're not tempted to actually quit. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I'd leave you with this, the same thing I put at the bottom of my email. So if you're listening, just do your job.
Perfect. How can people get a hold of you, find you,
Uh,
contact you?
So you can go to joshchase.org. It's kind of like my landing page. I write about family, I write about faith, I write about fire department, military. I write about all kinds of stuff. You can find me on Facebook. You just look up my name, and then joshchase.org on Facebook. I lead the Jump Seat Leadership page that's on Facebook right now. And so you can contact me multiple different ways. And then I just started a series similar to Underground Leadership called Speaking of Leadership, and I just talk about a topic for 2 minutes, and that's it. So if you have something you want to talk about and you want to be on it, that's easy. You just got to wear your fire helmet. So that's all you got to do.
All right. Sounds good, man. I do appreciate this conversation. I'm glad that we got connected,
Yeah.
and definitely looking forward to whatever you got coming next, and kind of the
Yeah,
relationship built from here. So thank you very much.
absolutely. No, I appreciate you having me on, Jeremy.
Really enjoyed it. Before I go, definitely want to give a shout out to the Woods Forcible Entry Door Kit boys. Appreciate their support, and thank you all for spending some time with us today. Look forward to next week. And until then, everybody stay safe, take care of each other, stay humble, and do work.